Okay, so today for Lookbook, we're going to start a new unit. We kind of talked about it a little bit at the beginning of class, just to get your ideas flowing about places you would want to explore. Um, and now you're going to get to see a bunch of different explorations of different places. So let me share my screen with you and walk you through the pages I want you to do today. So, exploring the world. This is a paleoanthropologist and a comedian, and she's a National Geographic explorer. In her hand, she has a copy of a Neanderthal skull. So, paleoanthropologists, remember, paleontologists are people who study fossils. Anthropologists are people who study living people. So, she does a little bit of both. Neanderthals are very similar to humans. Way long ago, Neanderthals lived on Earth as well. So they were like kind of cousins to humans. So they looked a lot like us. They were intelligent like humans, but they don't live on Earth any longer. So we did this question here before. Where would you like to explore? So we don't need to do anything else on this page. We're going to flip to page 90. We're going to do some listening and some reading, get our vocabulary, and then we'll switch through the student book and the workbook a little bit. So just follow along with my video and pause when you need to do some work, and then play it when you're ready for more. So here in this picture, we have Ed Stafford in the Amazon River during his 860-day Amazon jungle journey in the Amazon jungle in Peru. So the Amazon River is in South America. So first, we're gonna start with number one. We're gonna read this. We don't need to listen to it. I'll read it out loud. You can read along. If you had the chance to explore the Amazon rainforest, would you be brave and decide to go? Or do you think you would prefer to stay at home? So if you have the chance to do something, that means for whatever reason, you're given the opportunity. You have the choice, you can go. We know what brave means. Decide would mean making that choice. Or would you prefer to stay home? Prefer means you would rather stay home. That's up to you. Some of us like to stay home. Some of us like to explore. Keep reading. Here's what it might be like. You'd hear many kinds of noisy birds. We know what hear means. You might see spiders that are as big as your hand and snakes as long as a bus. You'd probably see some enormous insects and some little ones that bite and sting. You might not meet anyone else for several days. You'd have to carry enough food and water in your backpack so that you didn't run out. You'd have an amazing experience. So what do you think? Would you like to go? I don't know. I don't like bugs, and I don't love huge, long snakes as big as a bus. So even though I like to explore this one, I might sit out. So you can just write yes or no down here. Then let's look at part two. Fill in the blanks with all of our vocabulary we just talked about right here. Most of these words we already know, so it should be pretty simple. Also, it is, no, I was going to say they're the same exact as over here. It's a little bit different, but pretty similar to this first part here. So it shouldn't be hard to fill in those blanks. So please do. No, we'll use this one. Please do our part two. And then when you're done with those, zoom, zoom, zoom. We're going to do this listening. I know sometimes the listening is hard to understand. So if you're ever not sure what they're saying, just skip some of it. That's totally fine. I was messing around with it. I think when I put it really loud, it's easier for you guys to hear. So it might be loud. You can just turn your volume down. But the louder I have it, the more clear it is. So we'll try that. But if there's something you've listened 3 times and you have no idea what they're saying, don't worry about it. So what you're going to do is listen about Ed Stafford's walk along the Amazon, our friend up there. And then you're just going to write yes or no, if it's true or not. So pretty much like true or false. Let me turn the volume up.
No one had ever walked along the Amazon River from start to finish, but National Geographic adventurer Ed Stafford did it. He started where the
Oh, it goes louder.
Amazon starts, in Peru, and more than 6,000 kilometers and 2.5 years later, he arrived where the Amazon meets the Atlantic Ocean. For most of the journey, he walked with Gadiel Sanchez Rivera, also known as Cho. Ed met Cho in Peru, and they agreed to walk to the next town together. Cho loved Ed's idea, so he decided to continue along the river into Colombia with Ed, and then into Brazil, and then on to the end of the journey. If Ed hadn't met Cho, he would have walked the whole way alone. Ed and Cho sometimes ran out of food and money. They caught fish most nights, but sometimes the fish would escape by using their sharp teeth to bite through the fishing line. Often there was no path, so they had to walk in the river and carry their backpacks above their heads and hope there weren't any snakes hiding in the water. The rainforest is full of insects that sting and snakes that can bite, but in many ways, Ed preferred being in the rainforest to life in the town. He loved to hear the birds and see all of the amazing creatures. After 860 days, the two men arrived at the Atlantic Ocean. Ed described it as the best day of his life. Cho had never seen the ocean before, so it was a wonderful day for him too. They had many amazing experiences on the journey, and they had done something no one had ever done before.
All right, so if you need to listen again,
No one had ever walked along.
you need to listen again, just go back 2 minutes and listen as many times as you need. Hopefully you can understand it. So there's just a little bit in your workbook here for vocabulary. First thing, you're going to complete this crossword. So just keep your student book open so you can see all of the bold vocabulary terms. So do number 1. And then when you're ready, you can hit play and listen to this podcast. This is about a different expedition, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. Now these names are familiar to me because I've learned a lot about American history, but you might not have heard of them before. So this is an expedition from a while ago. It's not recent, but you'll learn about it in the podcast. So when you're ready, you can play this. Volume up all the way. Go.
Track 27, Unit 9, Exploring the World. Lesson 1, Vocabulary. Activity 2. Listen to the podcast about the expedition of Meriwether Lewis and William Clark. Circle the correct answer, A, B, or C.
Meriwether Lewis and William Clark were famous explorers of the United States. Movies have been made and books have been written about them. In 1803, so over 200 years ago, the President of the United States asked them to explore the huge area west of the Mississippi River. No one from the east of the United States had ever had the chance to explore this area before, and there were no maps. 45 people set off on the expedition in May 1804. One of the guides was a young Native American woman named Sacagawea. She was only 17 years old, but she was very brave. She showed everyone which plants they could eat if they ran out of food. She couldn't speak English, but she could speak the language of the people they met on the journey. So she helped get food and find horses to carry the equipment. If Sacagawea had not gone on the expedition, Lewis and Clark would not have had the chance to learn so much about the area they were exploring. Lewis and Clark arrived back in St. Louis, Missouri after 28 months. People had begun to worry that they were dead, but they were alive and well. expedition, they found 300 interesting new kinds of plants and animals. They named a lot of places after themselves, and one place, Seaman's Creek, after their dog, Seaman. Seaman's Creek is now called Montour Creek. They also drew maps, which were used for many years after their expedition.
All right, so you can rewind if you need. So this was an expedition, as you heard, a long time ago in the 1800s. But the area that they were exploring is actually very, very close to where I'm from, Iowa. Missouri is the state right next to it. But this was way, way, way before me or any of my ancestors even lived there. Okay, so that's it for vocabulary. Do this whole page and then jump back to your student book. We're going to skip grammar per usual and do this reading here. So let's see what we have. Okay, before we read, you can just take a guess in your head or out loud. What do you think this boy is holding in his hand? We're gonna find out. So I'll read it with you. You can read along in your head. 3 lucky explorers. Can you imagine stepping onto an enormous tooth? This is what happened to Philip Stahl from Michigan in the US when he was exploring outdoors near his home. Philip took the tooth home and cleaned it. He and his mom asked an expert what it was. It was the tooth of a mastodon, an animal similar to an elephant that lived about 10,000 years ago. Mastodons are now extinct. The tooth was about 20 centimeters long with 6 sharp points. What do you think mastodons ate with huge teeth like that? So here's a model of a mastodon. And previously we have talked about woolly mammoths, which are also related to elephants, but those are the furry ones. So this is different. It looks almost just like an elephant, but it's kind of like a cousin, like the Neanderthals and the humans, close to an elephant, but not. They're not living anymore today. So let's keep reading. 10-year-old Catherine Gray from Canada was looking at new and old pictures of stars taken at an observatory when she saw one that she hadn't noticed before. So an observatory is a place where you can go look up at the sky. They might have big telescopes, or it might just be an open big dome, usually in a place not close to a city, not with a lot of light pollution or air pollution, somewhere that you can easily see, look up at the sky and see the stars. She hadn't noticed before. She realized it was a supernova, a star bigger than the sun, which burns very brightly before it disappears. Catherine would have been the youngest person ever to discover a supernova if her younger brother Nathan hadn't also discovered one 2 years later. How do you think you'd feel if you discovered a supernova? So 10 years old, she made a scientific discovery just because she was looking up in an observatory and she was the first to see this supernova. Okay, young children often dress up as pirates and some have toy treasure chests, but not many play with real gold coins. A little boy in England was playing with an old coin when his dad decided to check if it was real. It had been given to the boy's dad by his grandfather, who had traveled all over the world and collected many coins. He discovered that the coin in his son's toy box had come from a ship near the coast of Spain in 1702. It was made of real gold and was worth about 250,000 pounds. What do you think he did with the coin? So I'm calculating here right now. Pounds are like the currency of the United Kingdom, like England. They're closer to the US dollar than NT, but let me look. US dollar, pounds. The British pound, 250,000. Oh, that is 9 million $783,900 Taiwan dollars. That's a lot of money. And he was just playing with this coin. So what do you think he did with it? What would you do with it? I know I would be going on some cool trips, buying plane tickets, buying that much money. All right, so you don't need to do this grammar part, but I do want you to answer these 3 questions. You can listen to me read again. You can reread on your own. Number 1, what did Philip find when he was out exploring near his home? How old was it? And I know there's not much room. You can write these answers wherever. What is a supernova? How did Catherine Gray discover one? Why is Catherine no longer the youngest person to discover a supernova? How did the little boy's father get the coin? And where had the coin come from? So I do want you to do these and then just a little bit more in the workbook and you're done for today. So here's our reading page. Let's see. So you are going to read about a famous underwater explorer. Before you read, check the words you think you will find in the text. Then read the text and check your answers. So all you know is you're going to read about a famous underwater explorer. So by looking at these words, what words do you think you might see in the story? And then you'll just find out if you were right. So no problem if you were wrong, but just look, which words are related to underwater and exploring. So do this first before you read. Then I want you to read Exploring the Ocean on your own. You can read this one. And then do number 2, read the sentences, write true or false. If it is false, correct it. So this information will come from your reading here. And part 3, complete the sentences. This is from the student page. It's from both. So you have some stuff from the student page and some stuff from this reading. So between the 2 readings, fill in the vocabulary that you got from these 2 pages. All right. Okay. So that's it for Lookbook, and that's your last part for today. If you finish early, you are always free to write or read or relax. Okay, I'll see you at 6:45.